One of the most common questions I get is, what is the difference between mediation and negotiation? If this question ever entered into your mind, you're in great company. Many years ago, a very senior federal judge, whom I will not name here, but who is among the most prestigious and well-known federal judges in the United States, asked me this very same question during an event that I was attending at Harvard Law School. Now, I gotta tell you, when she asked me this question, it was all I could do to not have my jaw hit the floor. But it made me realize that it's a bit unfair to think that most people, even those who might be storied federal judges, actually know the difference between negotiation and mediation. So this video is dedicated to that famous unnamed federal judge and to all of you who've been dying to know the answer. In this video, I'm going to describe what negotiation is and what mediation is and how they're different from each other, so that the next time you're in a conversation with your friends, your family, or maybe even a Supreme Court justice, you can wow them with your knowledge. And if you stay to the end, I'll share with you 2 skills that are common to great negotiators and great mediators alike. Plus, I'm going to share a story of how creative negotiation helped Oceanside, California with trash removal and their problem of beach erosion all at the same time. So put simply, negotiation is a process where parties come together for the purpose of reaching an agreement. In some cases, parties come together in a negotiation to resolve a conflict or dispute. In other cases, they might be coming together to hammer out some kind of a business deal, such as a merger or an acquisition, or maybe they're buying a car or a house or agreeing to salary terms. Anyone who's ever taken a negotiation class with me in the past knows I have an even broader definition of negotiation. I define it as any communication, written, spoken, verbal, nonverbal, between 2 or more parties with an intention to influence or to persuade. So examples of negotiation literally are all around us. In fact, every living human being who interacts with any other human being is a negotiator. And that's because if ever in your life you tried to get a sibling, a parent, a friend, a coworker, a life partner to do anything at all, then you have negotiated with them.
We're all in agreement.
So imagine it's the end of the work week and you really want to catch up on the latest episode of Succession or The Crown or Squid Game with your partner on a Friday night, but they're really bent on going out to dinner with your friends across town. Well, guess what? You're negotiating. The same is true when President Biden meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss Russian military activity at the border between Russia and Ukraine. In both the Friday night start of weekend interaction or the major summit of 2 superpowers, there are people trying to influence the choice of others and come to some kind of accord or agreement with each other.
I thought very strongly agree sounded stronger than totally agree.
Okay, so what's mediation? Mediation is basically negotiation facilitated by a third party, a mediator, whose job it is to help the parties come to an agreement. In other words, in mediation, parties who have an interest in the outcome are joined by the mediator, someone who is typically a neutral, and that person, that mediator, helps the 2 parties arrive at some kind of resolution.
Excuse me?
Let's solve this.
Someone who serves as a mediator is charged with helping the parties break the logjam that might be getting them stuck. And at least in theory, mediators don't have any personal stake in the actual outcome. Now, it's unlikely you'd hire a mediator to help you figure out what to do with your partner on a Friday night. But if you did, a mediator might ask you and your spouse the reasons behind your respective positions or demands. For example, the mediator might ask you why you want to stay home and catch up on TV. And you might say something like,
I just really love these programs, and I missed a few episodes because I've been so busy at work.
But a mediator wouldn't end there. They'd actually then ask why it's important to watch those shows on a Friday night rather than any other time. And in so doing, what the mediator is doing is probing for your interest, your underlying reasons behind your position, that desire to stay home and watch TV. As the mediator does this, they might learn that maybe you've had a really long week at work, you just need some brainless downtime, you feel depleted, and when you hang out with friends, you want to feel really present, and you just feel like you can't do that given your exhaustion. So in this case, your interest would be to replenish after a long week, to not have to use your brain, to be present when interacting with others socially, and maybe also to spend some time with your partner. Now, the mediator might do the same thing with your significant other. And perhaps the mediator would learn that even though your partner wants to see your friends tonight, their real interests are to celebrate the end of a long week, to connect with friends that they haven't seen in a while, to have an evening out on the town, and happily to spend some time with you. So once a mediator discovers the interests of the parties instead of their positions, the mediator can help the parties brainstorm some possible solutions that might meet their interests.
You interested?
So the example I've given you obviously is a pretty simple one, but as you can see, there's some obvious ways that both you and your partner's interests can be met without just some split the difference compromise.
All right, let's compromise.
So for example, in this case, you might agree to stay at home on Friday night, but make it a bit more celebratory. Maybe you'll take out a really nice bottle of wine, or you'll order dinner in, and then you'll agree to hang out with your friends on Saturday night when you're feeling more rested and can be fully present with that company. Of course, there are lots of other creative ideas available here, but what the mediator really does is help the parties get behind the hardline positions to those deeper interests, and then help the parties brainstorm options to meet those interests. So if we look at the example between President Biden and Vladimir Putin, you may remember that French President Macron tried to actually act as a mediator there as well. Now, obviously in this case, the issues are just a bit more complicated. And in this case, Macron took on the role of mediator in his meetings, even though he wasn't actually neutral, because of course, France is a member of the NATO alliance. But taking on the role of a mediator when you are also a party to the conflict or negotiation, as complicated as it can be, it actually happens quite a bit. And if you want to learn more about how you can be a mediator who might also have a stake in the outcome, you should take a look at my video, How to Mediate a Conflict Between Two Employees. So, the big difference between negotiation and mediation is that in mediation, there's a third party who assists the parties in working through their differences to resolve the dispute. Now, mediators have all sorts of styles and approaches to their work. So when parties are looking to hire a mediator, they ought to do some research to understand the approach that a particular mediator uses. Sometimes a mediator is highly evaluative. So what we mean by that is that the mediator, who may have had a long career, let's say as a judge or as a litigator, before they became a mediator, will feel comfortable actually putting a value on the case or kind of pushing the parties to accept a particular outcome. That's what we mean by evaluative. In other cases, right, a mediator might also be directive, meaning that they're going to propose lots of ideas and outcomes. But sometimes a mediator takes what's called the more facilitative approach. So that means they don't give their opinions about who's right or who's wrong or what a good solution might be. Instead, what they're really doing is creating some space for the parties to understand their substantive and also relational interests, and then helping those parties to generate their own possible outcomes for a solution. Despite the differences between negotiation and mediation, some of the skills that make for both great negotiators and great mediators are actually the same. So let me share two of them with you here. First and foremost, the very best negotiators and the very best mediators are also really fantastic active listeners. They paraphrase what others say, they acknowledge emotions, they ask excellent open-ended questions. Most people think of mediators as great listeners, but they're surprised a bit when I say that great active listening is also the stealth weapon of the best negotiators. Many times they think negotiators are aggressive or they're good at hoodwinking the other side, but this just isn't true.
Oh, well, that's not true.
Negotiators who listen well and ask good questions are better able to understand how their counterpart thinks and what matters to them. And only when you truly understand the world from your counterpart's perspective can you then frame questions and frame choices in ways that make it easier for them to say yes. So that second key skill that's common to negotiators and mediators is creativity. Mediators, of course, need to be creative about the way they design the mediation process. But they also succeed when they are able to get the parties to really think out of the box. Negotiators who can demonstrate creativity in coming up with solutions also expand the size of that negotiation pie. So let me share with you this story involving the city of Oceanside, California, and a landfill in La Paz, Arizona. In the late 1990s, the city of Oceanside was looking for a trash removal company to haul the city's trash into a dump. And as they were soliciting bids, Kelly Sarber, who was a consultant for a landfill in La Paz, Arizona, drew upon knowledge she had about Oceanside and the serious problem they had with beach erosion. And she used this to come up with a value-creating solution that could solve many problems.
We will not rest until this problem is solved.
You see, the La Paz landfill needed to get rid of sand in order to make way for more trash. And guess what? Oceanside needed sand. So instead of simply proposing a contract for trash removal, Sarber proposed something more. Each day, 22 trucks from La Paz would deliver sand to Oceanside's beaches to help stave off erosion, and would then return to La Paz filled with trash from Oceanside. Carber estimated that the cost of this contract would add less than $1 to the cost of trash removal for each resident of Oceanside. But in the process, the community would simultaneously address the problem of beach erosion. Now, obviously, this is a one-off example, but creative negotiators who think really broadly and out of the box can generate outcomes that one would not have otherwise considered if they had just thought simply about positions.
I don't know. I think I should consider what I do next very carefully.
So I want to direct you to another video called What is the Best Negotiation Strategy? Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And if you're interested in learning more about negotiation, mediation, and the skills required for success in these areas, keep on watching these videos and consider taking one of the workshops I offer through the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. I'm Bob Bordone. Thanks for hanging with me, and let's keep on mediating and negotiating. Here's that video.